pretty concerned with him.
He's good at everything, to be honest with you, and he's getting better over there at second, working with Wash today. Wash loosened up a little bit what he let him do today. Did the most he's ever done. He looked good.
The All-Star announcements coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow morning.
What are you kind of thinking what you would most like to see?
More hopeful. We've kind of actually talked about it in the dugout at time. You don't want hope during the game, but on things that happen outside the lines, like Webby being recognized, you're hopeful that the guys get rewarded. And with a lot of these things, they used to say tie goes to the runner. You'd like the tie to go to the giant because it's tough to make clear-cut decisions on who's the starting infielder on the USA WBC team and, who's Cy Young Award winner and things like that. So hopeful it's more than one, that's for sure.
Do you guys do anything special to celebrate Logan's recognition?
Nothing crazy. And he's into it, but you guys, I think, are familiar with Webby. He's an intense competitor, so he's kind of more into winning than anything. But I do think, I was talking with Dave, if you do some digging, he's kind of caught the short end of the stick, and the old tie hasn't gone to him in a few different categories during different times of the year. So I think anytime you get something, it's great. And hey, this is one of those boxes he hasn't checked, if I'm not mistaken, first time for him. So he deserves it, and I think it is a good mark too for. He's kind of had 2 seasons so far, and the second one's been outstanding.
You look at what predates the quote-unquote second season.
Yeah.
It's him getting healthy, but it's also when he started calling his own pitches. What do you think has been the biggest?
Well, I think, it's not for everybody. I do think a pitcher should always call his own pitches, whether it's just shaking off or actually dictating. I realize there's a significant difference there, but I don't know that anyone puts in more homework, and then I don't know that anyone is gifted on our staff. Robbie does it in a different way. Webby's so cerebral in how he thinks about the game and what he wants to do with guys. And if anything, there was one bullpen down there where Roop was throwing, and Webby was coaching as much on that occasion as any of the coaches. And I think he's at a point in his career, but also he's again at a point with his intelligence where I'd love to see more of that. He's his best coach out there, and I think he can help the other guys too, just as much as anybody else in the organization.
It looks like the rotation going forward, he would pitch next Wednesday, which potentially would mean he wouldn't pitch over that weekend. Could you see him being somebody who maybe would get considered because he's not pitching right before the All-Star game?
I do, and I think too, you do. It is a reward to play, and it's an honor to play in the All-Star game, and I think when those decisions come down, I think you got to put everything into a hat. How great of a year if a guy having, maybe the fans, other circumstances, but one I think should be recognizing and honoring what a guy's done over his career. And again, I think if you go back, you could argue pretty easily he's missed out a couple times when he should not have, so maybe this is an equalizer.
Yeah, and he wasn't available last year. He was there but couldn't pitch. So.
Yeah, and I think, I've talked to other people in baseball during this past off season about the roster and things like that, and it's interesting. I think players in this league are as big of a fan as fans are, but obviously fans really love watching them compete too.
Well, he's back in the starting lineup after missing a couple games. He still has the heating pad on. Just how's his back progressing overall? Well, obviously enough to play in the game, but just how is he? I think something you have to monitor.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good, and we went late with the lineup today just to kind of be sure about what we wanted to do. But once he's in there, if you know Willie, he's not going to do anything different, but I think we want to monitor it even during pregame and early in the game. If we got to do something, we'll do something, in particular with the availability of costs. But I do think he's in a good spot. I think I visited with you guys right after he was doing that weight room stuff on Wednesday, and he looked really good. And I think, it's been a significant amount of time for a little bit of a mental rest, but more importantly to get to, again, like Chappie, with the rotating stuff, you want to be cautious, but it's been a lot of conversations, so I think we're in a good spot to go forward.
Did you see that Gavin Keelan was selected to represent the organization at the teachers' camp?
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and I think a little bit of that has to do with how he finished going into the break. I mean, he really got things rolling at the start, hit a little bit of a lull, and then as of late has really picked things up. And like we talked with Drew, it's a little different. You want to make sure those guys are behaving, but representing themselves the way that they should. And the one thing I think fans will get familiar with is the way he plays is It's what we want in the organization. Some guys wear it on their sleeve a little bit more, but he's a silent assassin out there. He's a killer when he's playing. He's very sure of himself, and he wants to win. So hopefully an extra glimpse, because that'll be a game that's viewed by many, an extra little bonus early glimpse for Giants fans.
Did you not see much of Dakota Jordan too when he was at Mississippi State?
Yeah. Yeah, he had to tell me and Frank to calm down one time when we had a dust up with Mississippi State, and then he got right back up there and had a RBI base hit. And it kind of speaks to who he is. You see how physical he is, and if you're around him, he's very intense, but his intensity to me is more about intent. He plays the game like a fun-loving, little leaguer. I think he really enjoys himself out there. And he's a dynamic athlete with how strong he is. Looks kind of like a version of Bo Jackson. So he's got a lot of capability, and I know he's learning every day too. He's made adjustments each year he's been in the organization. So I think he's somebody to be excited about.
How involved are you in kind of this draft preparation leading into this event? Obviously
I think as much as anything on the who are the kids. If they're being mentioned in the draft, they have high character, but what is the makeup and what's the family dynamic maybe, and what does a guy look for? How does he approach certain things? I can give, and they involve me in the conversations. I think part of it is being just creating a good work environment. But I don't think it's, again, tied to the runner. There's not going to be a decision that's made because of something I input, because these guys are traveling all over the country. And I'd say it I'll take this time to say that. I know I'm being wordy, but I tried to, when I covered those drafts, make sure fans know how much work is put into each decision. And as much as the fans want to celebrate the guy they want to get picked, there's an insane amount of hours put in with boots on the ground, so the guys can make the best educated decision possible. And then there's many stories to look at. It's recruiting and it's scouting. It's impossible to predict the future. And all due respect to football, basketball, it is way harder in this sport to predict the future with a pitcher or a hitter.
Maybe the top 10, 20 projected guys, how many of them would you say you recruited or?
There's a lot of them, and then, but I think a big number of them too are guys we played against, like Rumfeld, and you get a vibe for what they're like on the field. And when it kind of gets to that with the hitters, I think the biggest thing is what was the fear factor in the dugout when that guy was up. There were some guys that just didn't bother you that much. Dakota Jordan bothered the hell out of you. And then on the mound, when you dig in and do a report on a guy and you see how comfortable your hitters are or not comfortable, I think that's a valuable bit of info to share with guys. But again, the hours put in could never match what even you put in recruiting Bryce or somebody like that.
Bryce seems to be kind of going through that process. Every young hitter goes through when they break into the league. Pitchers adjust, he adjusts back. How have you been seeing pitchers attack him lately, and how is he handling that?
There's you get the best hitters in college. You just go to the simple hard in, soft away, off speed stuff away, and hard in. And that hasn't been the only thing, but that's been a little bit of a common theme. And Bryce can pull his hands inside an inside pitch as well as anybody, but he is, anatomy-wise, longer than the average guy. And it's a spot where he's got to find that fine line of where do I let it ride and where am I capable of pulling my hands through. And then, off-speed pitches, you saw it, I forget which game it was, but the breaking ball away, line drive, base hit up the middle. So while I do think he's going through a learning process, he's doing a pretty dang good job of still getting on base for us, while he is going through that.